Well, thank you for coming today. It's nice to see so many smiling faces. My name is David Rinchie. I'm a wildlife biologist and certified wildlife biologist for the East Bay Regional Park District. I'm going to share with you today that over the last 24 years, a riparian breeding bird assemblage in suburban park in Central California showed a substantial decline. Those birds of notable conservation interests were the common yellowthroat, Wilson warbler, and song sparrow. The changes that I'll share with you weren't related to any change or alteration in vegetation or rainfall pattern, but the unusual heat events of 2000, 2004, and 2006. As we know, riparian areas comprise a small portion of our western landscape, but they're important areas for wildlife. Over 77 breeding birds are considered obligates of riparian habitat. And we know that California riparian habitats are important breeding and overwintering areas and migratory stopovers for a host of birds. There are a number of reasons for disappearing habitat: human population increase, recreation, degradation factors such as flood control efforts and improper grazing have all taken their toll on riparian habitats. The objectives of this study are to show the trends of avian population structure and riparian habitat. We want to establish a baseline density of those breeding birds for comparison purposes, and then really evaluate the unusual heat events that took place in 2004, 2002, and 2006. Just a little bit about the location. It's Coyote Hills Regional Park here on the eastern part of your screen circle. It's one of the largest willow-dominated woodlands left on the eastern shore of the San Francisco Bay, and it's owned and operated by the East Bay Regional Park District, a special district in Alameda and Contra Costa County. This willow area is a small remnant of its former size, lost due to agricultural and urban development. Arroyo willows and box elders and sycamores dominate the landscape here. In 1994, I had the pleasure of establishing a breeding bird census, BBC, on this park, and it was composed of usually 2 to 3 people, always following breeding bird census techniques and procedures, and I was always present. The counts were done early in the morning, usually a half hour before sunrise, and concluded 2 hours later, giving us a little less than 400 breeding bird censuses during this study. So how did we map territories? It's a spot mapping method. Breeding territories were based on repeated singing, simultaneous displays done by males. In addition, territorial boundaries could be marked off by birds carrying nest material or feeding young that helped to confirm territorial boundaries. Standard breeding bird census methodology allows for comparisons between years and different locations. And gaps in this research are really due to a lack of time. We got 24 years, lack of funding, which really made it impractical for 24 complete years. But still, we have 3 distinct blocks of data to compare that are 2 decades apart. So a little bit more on the methods. Differences in population density. We followed Cantberry and Blankstein's percent change and over the 3 periods of 1994 to 2008. Analysis of variance, non-parametric Kruskal-Wallis test was used to determine statistical significance, population densities per species, breeding territorials, as well as the focal species. And significance was set at 95%. Really looking at what is a cause of this long-term change, we started looking at the weather data, and 3 unusual extreme heat events at 2000, 2004, and 2006 were run to make those comparisons. So what are the results? As I said, we had slightly less than 400 observations over the 2-decade period of a complete breeding bird census. 639 territories were found in the first 6-year periods, 94 to 2008, and 108 territories in the comparison of 2014 to 2018. Over 80 bird species were observed during this 24-year, 25, which are known to nest. The same 22 species nested throughout the decades what was really fascinating is that over 10 rare, threatened, or endangered species visited the sites, such as a long-eared owl, yellow warbler, and of course, California black rail. So as you look at this chart here, you'll see the periods. Pink, period 1, 1994 to 98. The green is 2004 to 2008. And period 3, the blue is 2014 to 2018. And what you can see here is that the entire breeding bird population density declined over the 24-year period at a significant rate. Continuing, we wanted to look at the focal species, the common yellowthroat, which is kind of in this orange color, the song sparrow in green, and the tree swallow in blue, and the Wilson warbler. The warblers, the song sparrow, and yellowthroat all showed a statistically significant decline in that 3-year period. However, the tree swallows remained the same. So now I want to show you a little bit about these birds. All 4 riparian species persisted, although the song sparrow and common yellowthroat and Wilson warblers declined. The song sparrow up on your upper right screen, the Wilson warbler down here on your left with a black cap, and of course the beautiful common yellowthroat here on the lower portion of your screen, and the tree swallow go into a cavity. So the song sparrow was one of the dominant species on the site, and it averaged 12 territories in the early breeding periods, but after the heat periods, extreme heat, temperature, and humidity declined to less than 8 species. The common yellowthroat, which typically had 5 territories, declined to less than 3. So a little bit more on the results. So willow riparian woodland showed no change over time. It's 80% willows, and about 13% seasonal wetlands. But what's fascinating here is we wanted to start to look at the weather, and the weather data you can see are the blue dots, and the blue dots are the number of breeding territories corresponding to the main rainfall that year. And it tended to show that less rainfall, fewer territories. But when we ran the statistics on this, we found that there was no difference in the number of territories that were suggested. Although it seems like there could be a trend, there's no simple statistically consistent result here. So no rainfall is evidence. Now, the unusual heat events of 2004 perked our curiosity when comparing the old data with the new data. The blue line is extreme heat. The orange are the number of territories. And you can see from the red arrow on the screen that in 2004, we started to see this decline in bird species. And then the unusual heat events of 2004 by the orange circle on your screen, 2006, all compared showed a clear, persistent reduction in the number of territories. Then looking at this, we show that the number of bird territories dropped after this, due to this extreme heat, and it stayed 30% lower than previous. So the number of bird territories stayed 30% lower than normal. So though the song sparrow was present throughout the study, we know it's a ground shrub forager and likes dense vegetation. It still was here, but it declined following the extreme heat events. What are some factors that affect local songbird production? Well, there's multiple stressors: habitat loss, natural disturbances, cowbird parasitism, pesticide influences that can change food rates, predation rates, native versus non-native, and of course, the factor that we're leading to climate change. Among birds, acoustic song is very important, and they're particularly sensitive to human noises, which can result in decreased species richness of nesting birds, as well as the abundance of migratory birds. Other reasons for population declines include, let me back up here, increased recreation. This can modify the way wildlife and birds use areas in a variety of ways. It can be direct or indirect mortality, lower productivity, reduced use of preferred habitat, and of course, reduced reproductive rates. So other reasons for decline are usually some missing component of the vegetation. And as we've shared here, there was no measurable change in vegetation over time, and the song sparrow was present throughout the study. So other sort of reasons why populations can decline connects to really what we're sharing with you today is extreme heat events of 2000, 2004, and 2006. And such extreme heat events are going to likely get worse and more frequent with time as the climate continues to change. Public physiological tolerances of North American birds is somewhat limited, really related to owls, which are sensitive to high temperatures. But some studies on coastal species suggest that they probably have a narrow tolerance due to their habitat's historic mild climate. Weeks also showed that morphological change takes place in 52 American birds, migratory species with 1 degree temperature change. So the breeding bird census conducted here at Coyote Hills Regional Parks, operated by the East Bay Regional Parks from 1994 to 2008, over a 24-year period, showed a substantial decline in the entire breeding bird assemblage. Focal species for riparian conservation, the song sparrow and common yellowthroat and Wilson warbler, showed significant decline densities as well. These changes were not related to any measurable alteration in the vegetation or annual rainfall, but correspondingly to the extreme heat events of 2000, 2004, 2006, and that the breeding bird density was, after that period, was approximately 30% lower. I want to acknowledge certainly my co-author, Dr. Chris Kidding, is a great friend and really pushed to help find answers. I also want to express our sincere gratitude to the following institutions that helped to make this breeding bird biologist project possible. Lastly, I want to thank the Regional Parks Foundation for their commitment to our parks, and they provided over $90,000 in grants just to improve habitat at Coyote Hills Regional Parks. And with that, I'll take questions. Thank you for being here today.